Have you ever wished you had a map for your own mind? Some kind of guide to help you figure out why you feel the way you do or react to things in certain ways. Well, today we're going to unpack a simple but really profound drawing that is exactly that, a map to our internal worlds.
Okay, so take a look at this. At first glance, it might just look like a few boxes and some scribbled words on a piece of paper. But this is actually a really powerful guide. It lays out the whole relationship between our environment, our true core self, and all the ways we've learned to cope with life. Let's walk through it, piece by piece.
Let's just start with a question that gets right to the heart of everything. Think about it for a second. Your family, the school you went to, your community, how did their rules and expectations, spoken or unspoken, end up shaping who you are today? Well, according to this map, that environment, that's our starting point. So to really understand this journey, the map tells us we have to begin way over on the far left, with the environment itself. The diagram has a name for this, the toxic system, and that just represents any external world that puts a whole lot of pressure on us.
So, what exactly is a toxic system? It's really important to get this right. This doesn't always mean a place that's, intentionally malicious or abusive. It can be any environment that's defined by rigidity, where the rules are super inflexible, the expectations are unhealthy, and there just isn't much room for you to be, well, you.
And this system, it's built on pretty concrete things, right? We're talking about unwritten family rules, unfair power dynamics, or maybe boundaries that are either way too weak or way too strong. It creates this world of really strict do's and don'ts that kind of dictates how you're supposed to act.
Okay, so from that external system, let's move right to the heart of the map. Smack dab in the center, we find the person who's navigating all of this stuff, the adult, which is here to represent our core self.
Now, when you see the word adult in this diagram, don't just think about being over 18. It actually represents the conscious, rational part of us. It's that part of you that's watching everything, making decisions, and trying to figure out how to survive in the system it's in. It's basically the pilot of your ship.
And how does this core self get around? Well, it's got its own internal compass. The map shows us that our core is defined by our values, our morals, and our personal boundaries. These are the tools we use to get our bearings and decide what's right for us.
And what's the number one mission of this core self? It all boils down to one powerful, primal instruction, written right there on the map. Keep me safe. Every single boundary it sets, every value it holds dear, it all serves that one purpose, protection. You gotta remember that phrase.
So, what happens when the pressure from that external toxic system just gets to be too much? When the core self can't handle it with just its values and boundaries alone? Well, that's when we move over to the right side of the map and explore the detours we learn to take. These are our trauma responses.
One of the most common responses is the peacemaker. This is that part of us that learns pretty quickly that the safest way to get through the system is to just keep everyone happy. It's a direct response to that keep me safe mission, right? You learn to avoid conflict, you appease other people, you manage their feelings, all to make sure you stay safe.
Then you've got the scapegoat. In some systems, it's actually safer for one person to be the problem because it gives everyone else something to focus on and unite against. This role basically soaks up all the system's dysfunction and blame, and often the person ends up acting out to fit that role, which is a strange but kind of effective way to control a chaotic situation and, believe it or not, keep safe.
And of course, there's the hero. This response is all about proving your worth through nonstop achievement. If you're perfect, if you're successful, you bring positive attention to the system. The unspoken belief here is incredibly powerful, and it ties right back to that core mission. If I'm perfect, then I'll be safe.
And finally, the map shows us two roles that are often linked, kind of like two sides of the same coin. You've got the golden child, who perfectly reflects what the system wants and is kept safe with praise. And then you have the lost child, who learns that the absolute best way to follow that keep me safe rule is to just disappear. To be quiet, don't make waves, and don't ask for anything.
Now look, these responses, they are brilliant survival strategies. Absolutely brilliant. But they aren't meant to be our permanent address, So how do we find our way back to our core self? Well, the map actually gives us a path forward, and you can see it right there at the bottom. The path forward has a few key steps. First, it's simple acknowledgement, just recognizing the system and your responses in it, without judging yourself. Second, it's about consciously developing positive coping tools, healthier, more intentional ways to handle stress. And finally,
the map points to connecting with spirituality. And this isn't necessarily religious. It's anything that gives you a sense of meaning and purpose that goes beyond that first system.
This all leads to a really important distinction. On one side, you have reactive survival. These are the automatic, short-term reactions that are controlled by your environment. But on the other side, you have intentional thriving. These are the conscious, long-term choices that are guided by your own internal values. It's the difference between just being a passenger and finally reclaiming your role as the pilot.
And that is the crucial point right there. The goal isn't always to change the external system, because let's be real, sometimes we can't. The goal is to strengthen our own core self, to build up our boundaries and our coping tools so we can navigate any environment with intention and agency, instead of just reacting to it all the time.
So this simple drawing, it's a really powerful map for understanding ourselves, isn't it? It shows us where we came from, how we learned to cope, and the path we can take to get back to our core self. So I'll just leave you with this. Now that you have the map, what part of your own internal world are you going to explore first?